So, welcome. Today we have Meredith Koloski with us, and she wanted to give a testimonial as to how the various techniques that I use have helped her. And again, Meredith, as I said, there's no right or wrong. This is totally free flow. I haven't got questions made up for you. So, do you want to just start?
Sure. So we started working together. I guess the first time was over a year ago, which it's crazy that much time has gone by. And I was familiar with tapping coming in my life, in other avenues, in other healing modalities, and didn't know the depths of how powerful it can be until I had the opportunity to work with you. So we started working together. I had gone through a traumatic experience of almost losing my life and struggling with health issues and disease that had been manifesting in my body. And I was seeking ways to help to move through the trauma. And in the past, I had worked with therapists before. And in all honesty, I never really experienced like great breakthroughs. I do a lot of my own self deep diving and work. And I believe, we all need teachers and healers and in our lives to help us grow. But that particular route of therapy, it wasn't really helping me move forward, I found. And that started through being in relationships that were mentally and emotionally, some abuse was involved and traumas occurred in there. And so it had been things that had been storing for a while. And when we started working together, honestly, I was a little unsure how like the virtual connection was going to feel or going to work. But I remember just the very first time that we worked together and you took me through some like exercises and questions and visualizations and did some of the tapping for the first time. I felt a shift and a breakthrough that I was really not expecting to feel, and that I hadn't ever discovered through any of the other things that I had been trying. And then I was always unexpected. Like I was so excited just to be able to connect with you and say hi and like get on the, hop on and see you as in the weekly time. And I was never expected to, like I never went in every time, and it happened, the handful of times that we worked together, I still didn't come in expecting to be done and having moved through all that I went through. You helped me really get to the bottom of some, I guess I'll say, in our emotional needs that I was feeding and certain blocks that I had and certain belief systems that were so deeply ingrained. And I really remember one particular time in the work that we did, and you really helped me to uncover a deep core belief that I was living with that was really creating a lot of self-sabotage and blocks in my life. And I could honestly say if we had just done that one session, You shifted my life forever in the best of ways. And I'm forever grateful for that. So I think not enough people know about the different modalities, and I share tapping because of you and how it's influenced me in some of the classes and healing things that I teach. On a much more, I think, simple level, because I'm still such a student learning it. But I think there's a very special way that you combined leading us through, asking questions and uncovering with some conversation, and then having a very special way of helping. I mean, this, my experience is that you have a very special gift and way of helping to move through a lot of layers that can take, I felt like spent years of talk therapy, never even like cracking the surface. And the combination of the spiritual practices and the therapeutic practices that you combined really felt like everything to sort of safely move through all the things and all the different layers, and allow the emotions to come up, and the realizations and the discoveries of the things that I was holding on to that are no longer serving me. And there's still many layers and work to do. But I really found it, honestly, the most powerful experience that I've had in my journey of healing, and in someone helping me do that.
Beautiful. Yeah. And a couple things came up, and I was quietly writing while you were talking, because it did brings up some questions. Could you share some of your background, because you are a healer, you are a teacher yourself, right? So it's awesome, and I'd love you to share that, just because I love what you said. It's okay to ask for help. That we can help ourselves to a certain extent, but then we need to ask for help. So.
Yeah, I think that there's a big secret pressure, and maybe even belief system, that if you live your life in service work of others and in healing modalities as teachers, that you're not allowed to have issues, or we should figure out how to work it out ourselves. And I definitely struggle, have moved through. It took a while for me to be able to open myself up to ask for help. I felt fear that if I showed, I'm an open book, and I'll share any part of my story with anyone that will help them, if it will help anyone in any way. And somewhere along the lines, I developed a belief system that if people saw me weak, then I would not be valuable. And I was confusing that with the strength that is in vulnerability, and telling myself a story that as a teacher, as a healer, who am I to then be needing help from other people? So we forget that we're all humans, and really, if it's in your heart and soul to do service work for others, then it's actually, I feel now it's my responsibility to make sure I know how to ask for help. And because that's also, I love being a student, and the more that I can learn through my own experiences and the teachers and friends that come into my life, then the more I have to offer. So I definitely think that's a conversation in the world of healers and teachers and things that could be held more. Because I really felt like I took so many steps forward in the time that I spent with you. And it wasn't, every single day for weeks and weeks and weeks. We kind of connect when we can make it work. So, and, you know, I feel the times now where it's like, okay, you know, it's time to reach out. Step back for a minute. So, yeah, I mean, it's so important. We all need guiders and teachers and moments to say, I need help in my own healing processes.
And you teach meditation, you teach yoga, you are a dancer, you're in phenomenal shape. It's also to show that you can be at the top of your game and crap can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that, you know, and yet it's how you respond to that, right? That life is always going to throw curveballs. That's how we grow. That's the challenge of it and the beauty of it. Mm-hmm. Even if we may not appreciate it in the moment when we're going through it.
Yeah.
and you know, I love that you came to that realization that it's okay. In fact, you need to ask for help. And it's a journey I went through too, that I had to learn to ask for help and understand that energetically speaking, yes, I use that word, energetically, that how can we expect people to reach out and ask us for help in a healthy way if we are not willing to do the same? Mm-hmm. Right? And so would you mind sharing, since you said you're an open book, would you mind sharing your awe-inspiring story of how you almost died?
Sure. So for the past, I guess 5 years, I had been diagnosed with Hashimoto's and hypothyroid autoimmune disease, and been trying on a journey to figure out ways to holistically heal myself. And so that led me in the journey to start and also do a teacher training to teach yoga for thyroid and autoimmune. And along that journey, I found things that were really helping me with a handful of symptoms, and also found that I was continuing to have like tons of pain. And I kept expressing that I was having lots of pain in my lower abdomen and pelvic area. And doctor after doctor just kept telling me that it was gut. You have an autoimmune, it's imbalances in your gut. I had a doctor even tell me when I said, you know, I follow every protocol, I've cut out everything I could cut out, I do all the things. And he said, well, you say you do, maybe what you need to do is see a psychiatrist. And I hear that a lot of women share that story when expressing pain and knowing that something is wrong. So kind of long story short, just a few months later, I was diagnosed with endometriosis. And my whole life, I had been in and out of hospitals with pelvic pain, and people saying like, maybe you just had an ovarian cyst burst, or maybe. And when I was diagnosed and then started doing research, and I remember watching a documentary and listening to these women talk about their symptoms, and I just cried for like, oh my God, for 30, 40 years, like I have been going through this and knowing something was wrong and having people tell me that it wasn't. And so I found a doctor in New York City who specializes in endometriosis and what's called excision, because a lot of doctors will just cauterize the lesions of endometriosis, which then causes scar tissue. And then, I mean, there's women that have literally 16, 17, 18 surgeries because it just keeps. So I found this doctor. He said I was stage 4 endometriosis. I had a disease called anomyosis, which is the disease in the muscle of the uterus, and a mass growing in my uterus, and my bladder was in prolapse. So it had to be lifted and reconstructed. So when they went in for the surgery, the disease was everywhere. So they had to remove my uterus, cervix, fallopian tubes, and reconstruct my bladder. 6 weeks after that, I went to my checkup, and it was very quick. And I got in the car afterwards, and I actually called my mother, and I said, I've been going through like kind of a challenging 6 weeks. And I told the doctor that I was feeling pressure, and he kind of just dismissed it and said, like, you're going to feel stuff, it's pain, that I should live my life, and everything was fine. And 2 days later, I moved. I was having a lot of pain, and again, long story, kind of shorter. I picked up my son from school, got home, went to use the restroom, and it felt like a baby's head crowning, and I stood up, and my intestines fell out, and I caught them in my hand between my knees. So 911, 2 hospitals, 3 different surgeons, 5 hours of surgery, lots of really horrific things done to me, in between, with people trying to figure out what was going on. See, I'm using my tools.
I should.
Yeah. And I'm just about a year and a few months out from that. And it's been a long year of recovering and moving through that. And actually, I'll share this, which I haven't. So I was under the impression from that surgeon that once I chose to go this route and have the surgery and the full hysterectomy, that I would be free from the disease. And recent events put me back in the hospital to discover that I, in fact, have the disease growing back in my body again. They kept my ovaries, so I wouldn't go into premenopause. And it was never communicated that if that choice was made, that there was a chance that the endometriosis would come back. So moving into the process of the pain that I had before the surgery is progressively starting to come back, and now having to look into potential another surgery or or the medication to manage pain, that kind of stuff. So yes, I will be needing lots of tapping with you. If you're available tomorrow. But that's,
if you're recounting a story like this, tap your collarbones, like right here or here.
Yeah.
Don't ever tell the story without doing this.
Yep. You taught me that, and it's made a huge impact, because as someone who is passionate about wanting to help others, people are asking me to do speaking events and engagements and share my story. And so these tools that you've given me, because we want to make sure we can share our story in the act of service without like embodying the trauma over and over again by verbalizing it. And I just feel like the tapping is so powerful. We also use it in our house with our kids on a subtle level, but I also find that it's really impactful in that way too.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. Very few people have gone through what you've gone through, and I know for the sake of time that you have left a lot out, but there was a lot of physically and emotionally and psychologically, and we'll add in spiritually, because we're being that way today. That's how I am every day. If you don't like it,
yeah.
I love you anyway. And so there was a lot for you to work through, and interesting. Could you talk about how your the other traumas were impacting, like the physical trauma, the emotional trauma, and how it was impacting your life, and how the tapping helped with any or all of that?
Sure. Well, I don't think, when we started working together, I was moving through this particular scenario, and also know that other experiences and traumas that I had gone through in my life were definitely a part of the dis-ease happening. And, I am a dancer and a choreographer and a yoga teacher. Movement is my Prozac, I say. And I spent my whole life in self-study of my body and the body and how it can move and how it can create and how it can be used to help heal and how it, and so then all of a sudden to go through something where I was having to live in a body that I was so afraid of, that I felt like, I failed it or it failed me, that how am I supposed to ever feel like I was scared to do anything? Taking steps was scary, to, like, when you experience your body like literally falling out, not something I ever could have imagined in my head. And so the work and the, and like we always talk about in growth stuff, right? It is the power to choose our perspective. And so the work helped me to kind of shift from the fear perspective to knowing that if I actually step back and said, wow, like this body is actually pretty divine, that it can fall apart and come back together. And through that particular day when the trauma was happening, my spiritual practices and how they came into play were really things that I truly believe saved my life. And so the tapping was something that, it's so amazing to me how simple it is, and how profound at the same time. And I think the fact that you're using your own body to find, to heal itself and to connect together. Like, I think when the traumas happened, I felt so disconnected, and it was so confusing to me that like I've spent my whole life finding connections with my body, and now I feel afraid of it and totally disconnected, which then was also making me feel disconnected in my partnership, my brand new marriage, I felt I was having a hard time even going into social situations because I just felt so lost. And so the tapping, it's, I love things as a teacher, and now, needing them in my own healing journey. I always say, it's about filling your toolbox. So it's such a gift to have something in your pocket that you can pull out at any second, and all you need is you to like take you from a 10 to a 2. I mean, there's nothing, we need the work of teachers, right? Like I learn and grow and go deeper when I work with you than I'm going to just allow myself to do with my own devices. However, it's such a gift that the things that you've taught me are always in my pocket. And so when things come up, or when I'm still navigating these things, I'm on stage and I'm cueing myself. I'm placing my hand in places you taught me, and I'm making sure that I'm staying like grounded as I share. And it also helps to, I feel like I'm able to use it even in like silly circumstances, like people that challenge you, that you have to deal with in life. And I can kind of set myself up, like, get prepared, or, like they don't need to know if we're talking and I'm just keeping myself, so it is really one of the most or I'll say, I think one of the greatest gifts in healing and in life. And it's so applicable to like really deep trauma, things we have to move through, to like everyday, like just needing a little something. I hope I answered.
Remember I said there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
You sharing from the heart. Otherwise, I could just get up here and like spout like what I think, it's all about, right? And that's not the purpose of this. It's to hear from you, and I do appreciate and love that you talk about using the tools for yourself and with your family, and to a certain extent in your stage, like in your teaching that you do yourself. Because I always say, one of the reasons why I've moved from clinical practice to this format and even doing this in groups is that I am all about, that old adage, teaching a man how to fish and feeding him for a lifetime, rather than just giving him a fish and feeding him for a day. So while there are times when physical treatments are most definitely needed, I do love this, that I'm giving you a tool. So part of what I'm doing with you is teaching you how to use the tool. And then knowing that, we'll say 95% of the time, you can clear your own stuff, your own BS, as I call it, your systems, your fears, your blind spots, any other brown stuff that's blocking your life. And that, where I come in, or other practitioners, because I'm not the be all and end all, is that it's a matter of finding someone that fits with you in the style that you need and that you're comfortable with. And then I see my role as creating awareness that you might not have had on your own to work through it. And there are times that, we work through a lot of intensive things, emotions and pain and, physical symptoms that, and you said so wonderfully that you, even consciously or unconsciously, would not allow yourself to go there because it doesn't feel safe for you to deal with it. And so it's about creating that safe space. Did I create the summary of it?
Yeah, I think 1,000%. And I also think, I just wanted to share, because you mentioned the group setting. I think sometimes people, it might be hard to wrap your brain around, like what kind of like therapeutic work in a group online setting can I do? And the group like the Clear the B.S. Group and program that you do, it's just as powerful, because it also allows you to realize like that we're really all going through the same journey. Maybe it like has a different mask, I'll say, on it, but if one person brings up a topic and you choose to guide on that topic for that person, every time it has helped me so much. Like even if I'm watching the recordings, it was something I needed also. So I think that is such a beautiful opportunity to go in, and you'll really gain something that you didn't even expect to get, or work through something that you weren't expecting, and your walls are down. Maybe when the conversation is someone else sharing their story, and then you start tapping and you're like, oh, whoops, we got some of that in there too. So,
yeah. And thank you for mentioning the Clear the B.S., even though, well, you and I have worked in both settings, so you can speak to both. And it's so true. It's, you know, we talk about the vulnerability, and part of the Clear the B.S. is I can come with preconceived ideas of what I'm going to work on, and yet I prefer it to happen organically. And when somebody allows themselves to be vulnerable and share a blockage that they're having in life, whether it's their health, their wellness, their relationships, their career, their wealth, their communication in various arenas, they always feel like, oh, I don't know if I should mention this, you know, and I'm wasting people's time, and I'm afraid that I'll be judged. And yet invariably, and yes, we will have people crying at times, good way crying, and it's not just the one person who brought it up. Everybody else will invariably going, oh my goodness, thank you, I needed that so much. You spoke to me when you said that. You spoke for me when you said that. And the reason why I keep talking about clearing the blockages, and Meredith, I know you understand this with your background, is that because I also do acupuncture, in traditional Chinese medicine, they consider pain or any physical condition or even a negative emotion to be a blockage of one of the meridians, the energy meridians of the body, and that by clearing that blockage, that then the chi, the essential energy, can flow freely, and the pain will dissipate, the emotion, the negative emotions will dissipate, which is why acupuncture and tapping are so amazing for things like fears, anxiety, stress, overwhelm, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and then physical pain, because it's all in that primitive part of our brain, and it's all tied in with our emotions. So, and I realize I'm talking neurologically now.
My favorite.
That's part of what I do. I talk energetically, I talk neurologically, I talk physiologically, I can bring
Yes, that's the best part of it all. We can know all things. Yeah, I mean, and then similarly, so Kundalini yoga is a practice that's come into a big part of my healing, and and it's a lot of the similar, when you chant, it's tapping into the meridian lines, which are actually creating brain chemistry and different things to start producing in your brain that doctors will give you medicine for. And, so in that work and the work that I did with you, it was such an incredible opportunity to realize that, I was always needing movement like this, to kind of help me find balance. And this, as traumatic as it was, like, we always get our best growth through the most challenging times. And I really got to learn that our body is such a divine healing system. And if we incorporate the right tools in, and I talk a lot about that if there's disease manifesting, it's something stuck, it's a block. And through our breath work and through the tapping I learned from you, and through, those are all ways that we can help clear the block so everything can flow. So yeah, it's a huge gift.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Meredith, for sharing your story and how Clear the B.S. and the tapping, or even just working with me, has impacted you, so that it gives other people an idea that, as I said, rather than me just, standing up on a stage and, having verbal diarrhea of how much it's so wonderful to hear real people.
Yeah.
Rather than just me. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.